giving you a voice.
Making it loud our own way.
Welcome to the fun. All right, so let's just jump right into this. So we're going to do a match from the 2002 season. Yeah, let's kick it back all the way old school. And we're going to talk about what I consider to be one of the most dominating, or maybe the most dominant performance I've ever seen in FRC history. That's right. Like this match, this robot defied the expectations of what robots can do. And even today, with better technology, we still don't see robots pulling off what 71 did in this one match. So like when I talk about this being the most dominant, it's not necessarily because of the score or the outcome, but it's just the way that 71 ends up manhandling the field and the robots in this match. It blows me away. If you've actually watched any of my strategic design presentations at the championship locally or online, you've definitely heard me talk about chokehold strategies. Well, the 2002 game was one where a chokehold actually existed, and Team 71 exploited that chokehold all the way to a championship. So let's just go over the scoring first. The basic, and I'm going to really give you a simplified explanation of the game. There were 3 goals on the field. They were massive. They each weighed 180 pounds. If you got a goal into your goal zone, that was worth 10 points. So 10 points for a goal into the goal zone. Balls were worth 1 point each in a goal, but only if the goal was in your own goal zone. You got 10 points for a robot in your home zone, which was on the opposite side of the field of your goal zone. So if you were to get 3 goals in your goal zone, which is zone 4 on the diagram that Tyler's showing, let's assume that Red Alliance is starting in zone 1. So you get 3 goals in zone 4, and you park your robot there, you've gotten 30 points for yourself. Now your opponents can't get any goal points because you have all the goals. They also can't get any ball points because ball points are only worth it. You only get value for them if the goals are in your goal zone. So the only points the robot opposing alliance get would be by scoring their robots, which would be 20 points for 2 robots, and then maybe 10 if they can kidnap a 3rd robot, which you were allowed to do back then. It was really weird. So even if they get 3 robots in their zone, the final score is a 30-30 tie. But what was the tiebreaker? Number of goals. Hence, if you got all 3 goals, you win. That's guaranteed, and that's a chokehold.
I was really surprised it wasn't balls that year, by the way, for the tiebreaker.
Yeah,
by the way, I should mention both Karthik and I were both in first way back here.
Yeah, I was in college at the time. Tyler had to compete against the Beatty Beast, and so he had to live through this experience. And Tyler's team actually pulled a win off of that. We'll talk about all of that afterwards.
Yeah, I feel like Uncle Rico talking about that stuff. I'm like, dude, back in our day, if they would have put us in instead of that Ricky Quiones team, we would have taken that regional, no problem.
But man, 16 years ago this was. But even still, this just kind of blows me away. But to execute this chokehold strategy, you had to grab 3 goals, which were spread apart by about 20 feet from end to end, which sounds kind of crazy. And they each weighed 180 pounds. So you were really, really taxing your robot to do it. So if you wanted to pull this, most teams thought this was impossible. 71 did. Again, for those of you who don't, we think now of domination, we think of the Cheez Eagles, we think of Team 254. 71 was the dominant team of this era. They won the championship in 97, 2001, 2002, 2004.
Which was 3 out of my 4 years in high school, by the way.
Yeah, exactly. There was a whole era that was just Beatty winning championships. They won championships when the game was still 1-on-1. They won multiples in the 2-on-2 era. So it was and first was harder back then because there were no COTS parts. You were restricted to the small parts catalog. So doing crazy things was just you had to have such huge amounts of resources and ingenuity. And also there wasn't this community of sharing that exists now. So creative out of the box designs, you had to come up with it on your own. You weren't taking someone else's idea and then refining it and figuring out how to improve it. You did your own thing and it showed up at events. And now people get excited when 118's release video drops. That's when you get excited. But
what's a release video?
Yeah. What's YouTube? It didn't exist.
Yeah, it didn't. Yeah. No. Chief Delphi did, and it's now pretty much exactly the same.
Still a train wreck. But the most exciting day was practice day of a regional, where people would line up outside of Beatty's pit waiting for them to uncrate their robot, see what Beatty had built.
Waiting for them to assemble their robot from the parts and pieces that it was?
Yeah, well, I mean, that was also a Wild Stang move. Wild Stang would just ship a crate full of parts and then build something at the event. But anyways, to pull off this chokehold, you had to make huge design trade-offs. And let's go over all the trade-offs Beatty made. And Tyler will throw a picture up of this robot. First of all, it started it didn't start with its wheels on the ground. It started standing up. The reason it did this is so they could take advantage of the full 5 feet of reach for their arms. So then they fall over and then their arms extend out like this giant pterodactyl, and that allows them to reach all the goals. But they had to start standing up to do that. So that was design trade-off number one. Number two, and this gets really important in the match we're going to talk about, they're goal grabbers to grab the pipes of the goal. Once they grabbed them, they were, they knew that to win the match, they had to control these goals. So they didn't want to ever have anyone yank a goal away from them. So when they would latch on, it was a one-way latch. Like they could not let go, even if they wanted to. The robot had no ability to turn. It could only drive straight. So it had 2 gears. The first gear was a super fast high gear to get to the goals, hopefully to be the first ones there. But it could only go straight, just boom. And then the second gear, they would shift into, they wouldn't be driving on wheels anymore. They'd be driving on file cards.
Metal file cards.
Yeah, metal file cards that you use to clean a file. And these file cards would dig into the carpet. Nowadays, they have the no metal touching the carpet rule. That was because of Beatty in 2002. These file cards would dig into the carpet, and they'd ever so slowly inch forward because they knew once they had the 3 goals, they just had to move them about 5 feet. So it didn't matter how fast they were going. They were literally moving not feet per second, inches per second, like maybe 1 or 2 inches per second. But so that was another trade-off that they made. And like it just, you think about all that, you put that all together, it's like, how did this work? Well, man, it was a thing of beauty. So we're going to jump into the semi-final. There's a video, you can see the robot dropping and the arms popping out. And I know a lot of people look at this now who are in the modern era, they're like, that looks so slow. And like, oh, I could do that. Like, no, you couldn't, man. Like, not with the restrictions there. And also
welcome to how FIRST used to be. So be happy with what you have.
And the robots back then, like the level of complexity was so crazy because again, they weren't using COTS parts. If you wanted to have a gear, you had to buy gear stock and machine it down. If you wanted sprockets, you were machining your own sprockets. Like, forget about like the 2-speed transmissions we talk about and whatever. Like, you were milling everything basically from stock or what was in the small parts catalog. So to do even like any sort of custom gearing, like you had to do it on your own. It was very much an Apollo 13 style competition. And I mean, we could probably do a candidly speaking on whether FIRST would be better off to have more restrictive rules right now. But that's
one thing before you move forward. I just want to point out that one of the biggest things I miss about high school in robots was the rotating police light to identify robots. That we have. I'm sorry, these were badass back then.
It wasn't bumper color. Like you had a signal light, but it was massive. Like it was like the size of a pineapple on your robot, and you had to fit it within the size constraints. And you would have to put on the red dome for red matches and the blue dome for blue matches. But it was pretty visible. Like that was cool.
Yeah, they're pretty cool.
So here we are. We're in the semifinals at the championship, and this was a huge match. So Team 71, they had 2 partners. They had Team 173, who was the Alliance captain, pick them. Because the way the scoring worked that year, you weren't ranked based on wins and losses. You were ranked based on the amount of points your opponent scored. So Beatty wouldn't necessarily seed one with their chokehold strategy.
I think it was 3 times the losing alliance's score is what the winning alliance got.
Yeah, and so it was like it was strange, but it was a thing. Either way, and they had Team 66 as their second partner, who was a fabulous kind of like bully bot, who just kind of, their goal was to make sure no one could spin Beatty, because Beatty, if they got spun, they couldn't spin back because they couldn't turn. They were playing against a crazy alliance. So in this match, we have teams 65, 66, 67, 68, and 71, just in terms of like numerology, for if you appreciate stuff like that. 67 was one of the fastest robots in the world that year, and they had a great hybrid single goal ball bot. 68, Trucktown, this was their first year being called Trucktown Thunder. They used to be called Trucktown Terror, but then 9/11 happened, so they renamed to Trucktown Thunder. was one of the top 5 or 10 double goal bots. So like this match could be one. Like again, Beatty had a chokehold strategy. They didn't win every match. They were beatable. It's just when they achieved their goal, then it was over. They had you completely locked out. So 67 and 68 had a way to win this match. Unfortunately, well, for them, it didn't really play out. So as we're going to jump into this match, remember, there's no autonomous mode. So you have to understand that these robots are going in tele-op. And this is going to be a different sort of FUNalysis match because we're only really going to need to cover the first 20 seconds. Because again, if Beatty does what Beatty does, they win the match.
The match is done.
10 seconds. Yep. And it's over. And so we're going to see that happen right here. So we're going to...
By the way, when the match starts, it literally is, when they say drivers behind the line, this is kind of where that comes from. Because you would literally start behind the line. They would say 3, 2, 1, go. And that's when you could cross the line and literally lunge forward to grab your controllers and drive the robot.
And the other thing is, like, so Beatty's match would start with a flop. And a lot of people realized, well, one way to possibly stop them was to prevent them from flopping. So human player would be holding a ball, and as soon as the match starts, they would whip it right at the Beatty robot and try and have the ball land. So when the Beatty robot lands, it would beach itself on the ball. Hilarious story.
This was not un-GP back then, by the way. This was legit strategy.
In 2002, the team, I forget who it was, but they chucked a ball at Beatty, and they missed. It went over the driver's station wall and bagged Beatty's drive coach, who was down for the count for that match because he took one in the nards. So I mean, these are old-time memories. Okay, so again, this match is going to start. 67 is going to come out really quickly. So we're going to start and we're going to pause it at 118. And pausing right here. 67 is actually beating Beatty to the goals. Now, 67 is not actually making a run at the goals. Their goal is just to cut in between the goals and block Beatty's arm to hopefully keep Beatty from getting any of these goals. And they they get there first, but Beatty's able to power through. So let's just let this go for a couple more seconds. Pause at 116. And boom, we're right here. Beatty has linked on to the center goal and the far right goal. But they've missed the outside goal. Hot has blocked them away from that outside goal. And if we just let this run for maybe a second or two more, we're going to see that 60, and pause it right now, we're going to see that 68 Trucktown has grabbed one of the goals. So right now, if you think about this, Beatty's chokehold is broken. The Blue Alliance has a goal. 68 can take that goal, fill it up with balls. They can go to the human player for balls. Hot can put some balls in it, and they actually have a shot at winning this match. But a couple things happen. Let's rewind a bit about to like 116 again. And right now we see where Hot is. And notice Beatty's arm is dangling out there. And let's watch what happens as we resume. 71 accidentally grabs onto 67. Pause the match right now. Remember what I said about how 71 couldn't let go? Well, now 67 is attached to 71. So Beatty now has 2 goals and a robot. So that's 480 pounds of dead weight. And it's 360 pounds of dead weight. That's 120 pounds of weight that's going to be pulling against them. But so like Beatty's like, well, what do we do? Like we want to use our arm to grab a goal. We can't grab that goal anymore. What are we going to do with Hot? Well, watch them as they close their pneumatic arm. Yoke! They just drag 67 around. Let's pause again right here. Can we rewind and do that again? This is one of the best teams in the world. They are ragdolling. They are dragging the Hot team around with their arm. They're bicep curling them. It's freaking phenomenal. So let's pause right now because something really important is going to happen. Remember we said 68 has one of the goals. They can take this goal, fill it up with balls, from the human player because they don't have a ball intake. Hot cannot help them fill up with balls anymore because Hot's been grabbed, but there's still 10 balls at the human player that they can get. But they make a mistake. They decide to play tug of war and they try and grab on to one of the goals that Beatty was grabbed onto. So let's resume here. And 68 is grabbed on. Now let's pause again because right now the match is over. Team 71 has 3 goals and 2 robots that are all linked together. They are dragging nearly 700 pounds of stuff. But it doesn't matter. They have all the goals, and at this point, everyone knew there was nothing that could be done because Beatty was going to inch their way forward. And let's just watch this for kicks.
By the way, I wish we could have some audio on this because the game announcer for this match
Partridge.
Oh, that's who it was. I could not remember who it was. Has the thickest New England accent you will ever. Literally sounds like Peter Griffin.
Well, also, he just had to find ways to kill 90 seconds for every Beatty match. He would read out sponsors.
Where was Sir Charles back then? Well, I was going to say, nobody knows who he is now, but...
But you see, 66 is just, they're like, oh, I'm going to push Beatty a little bit. I'm going to help him out. And this just keeps inching away. And this is what matches were like once Beatty got the goals, it was over.
Literally, Beatty killed the fun in first in 2002. At least in 2001, like, the robot was fascinating to watch. Like, nobody could beat them, but at least they were fascinating to watch.
Yeah, from an engineering perspective, this robot was beautiful. From like an entertainment value, like this was not. This is like the equivalent of watching the neutral zone trap in hockey. I don't even want to talk about tethers, but Beatty extends one. But... So going back to the explanation of the game rules, and the tethers could be a whole. I mean, if we did, candidly speaking, back in 2002, there would have been like 4 shows dedicated to that. So basically, the rules said that year, you got 10 points for every robot you had in your home zone at the end of the match. But being in the zone was defined as having part of your robot touching the zone. And there were no rule on extensions back then. There were very few rules back then. Like, you were limited to your creativity. And so teams could just roll things out. And so what happens is, like, a lot of teams started developing these crazy cool mechanisms for things. But then some teams figured out that you could just attach a tape measure to a drill.
That's literally what happened for most teams, yeah.
Well, it happened with one team at their first event. They released it, and then everyone started. This was like the original cheesecake. Like, this is old school cheesecake, like some moldy ass cheese. And everyone started putting these tape measures on their robots, but it had to be a tape measure that was purchased from Small Parts catalog. And so you had like the crazy douchey inspectors of old who were like checking the tape measures to make sure they were bought from the right source, and some teams had their tape measures pulled
when
off.
COTS actually mattered.
And so like this, the reason why this was a controversy is it was ruled illegal during the build season. I think someone Q&A'd it, or in the form of the Q&A. But then at the first event of the season, someone came with one of these, and the game design committee was like, well, that's so cool, we're going to legalize it. Like, that's so cool, we can't say that's illegal. So...
You know who had a really cool one of these was, do you remember Wild Stings?
Yeah, Wild Stings was drivable, wasn't it?
No, Wild Stings was, I think, like Beatty's a little bit, but like it was the tongue where like the match would end, it would drop and then just roll out after the match ended, like for like 15 seconds afterwards.
Okay, now I remember that.
There were a couple drivable ones too.
Yeah, there were people like, and those were the teams who got really upset. They developed these like little mini-me robots that would pop out and drive to the home zone that were super, super cool. And then suddenly, like, everyone's got a tape measure on, so all that hard work was negated. And like, I mean, I think we should all be thankful for our game design committee right now, because like mid-season rules changes were a thing like every year back then. And it would just like blow up, and it was ugly. Like, I can only imagine the animated GIFs people would post on Cheap now if some of those things happened like today. Like,
thank you for not saying Reddit, by the way.
Problem.
One other thing that I was thinking about on this too, from this year's in this game was just I look back and like, what could a team or an alliance do if, like, in a situation like this? I mean, you pretty much need at least one goal to win, right?
Well,
like, there's nothing you can really do.
There's stuff you can do before, like in the first 10 seconds of the match. For example, here, having Hot, who was super fast by that era standards, I know it looks slow now, bust right through and block Beatty's arm from one goal. That was the right move, because once Trucktown gets that other goal, now they have a goal, and if Hot doesn't get latched on by Beatty, they have a shot at this, because Hawk can all those balls. Hawk can just pop up into their popper. They can fill that one goal, take it to a zone, and they have an actual shot. Where Beatty's alliance was going to be maxed out at 40 points, 2 goals and 2 robots, plus a ball or 2 from the human player, or whatever. Let's say they max out at 42. Hawk can get back for 10 robot points Trucktown can release a tether for 10 robot points, and then they have a goal, so they can outball them. They can actually pull this off. So it's not out of the question. But it was all that about that race. And there were teams, like, it wasn't like 2001 where Beatty couldn't be beat. In 2002, Beatty could be beat in the first 10 seconds of the match, except there were very few teams who were fast enough or, you know, could do the right thing and then not panic like 67 and 68 did in this case. But I mean, the 700 pounds of dead weight is like, and I mean, the game design committees over the year, there's not been a chokehold since then. The closest would be 2010 by establishing the cycle, locking that in like Sports 69 did. And the reason is because of 2002. Because even I think chokehold strategies are fine to leave in a game as long as you make it significantly difficult, which it was for this year. And I'm okay if one team figures it out. But it also, like, there was a lot of people who just thought this was boring as ish. And, you know, and it kind of was. So, and it was the same people who thought that 469 parking in the tower and establishing a cycle was really, really boring. I thought it was super exciting, you know, but like, I mean, different people like different sort of things.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I mean, like, this is what we talk about dominance, where, like, you know, we talk about matches now. People talk about in 2008, like, 11-14 would win the match in auto. People are like, oh, you would just win the match in auto. It's like, no, we would take a lead in auto. We would still have to play the rest of the match, you know? And like, people this year, like, oh, the Poofs won everything in auto. They didn't need to do anything. It's like, yeah, the Poofs definitely took leads in auto, but there was still work to be done. With Beatty, no. Once they got 3 goals, it was over. You could walk away. Ron, like, and Tyler knows this better than anyone. First game announcers and MCs were trained to make the match sound competitive as long as possible. Yeah. You never want to say, oh, this is over. Ron Partridge, like, these matches, like, oh, well, congratulations to the Blue Alliance. Great job showing out. Here,
Beatty has it.
Yeah. He was literally reading off their sponsors and congratulating them and saying good luck next year with 60 seconds left in the match. Because it was over. And, like, there's no point in treating your audience like they're a bunch of idiots and being like, oh, let's see what happens next, you know?
Because there was nothing that happened next. You know, so one of the matches that maybe to bring up for a later time if we ever want to revisit 2002 was at the Midwest Regional Finals. Beatty played against Wildstang. And in that match, Beatty only got 2 of the goals, and Wildstang ended up getting...
They only get 1 of them.
Maybe. Yeah. Well, they only got 1, right?
One or 2, either way.
But they... Beatty won, and Wildstang lost because Wildstang put... I think Wildstang was with Technocats, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, it was 111-45. Raul Oliveira coaching for 111, Andy Baker coaching for the Technocats.
That's right. And Wildstang literally put a ball in the wrong goal and lost him a regional for that. Yeah. Like, it was the most insane thing ever. And you just see the background of just, like, people just, like, Baker just ready to pull his hair out back then. It was amazing.
It was, they had their goal. They didn't realize the goal was in Beatty's ball zone.
Yep.
So
I don't know how you don't realize that,
but it was in the ball zone, and like I think they just kind of panicked. And at the end of the match, it started ejecting balls, and it was just the last ball they ejected tied the match, and then Beatty won on tiebreaker. So Beatty must have had 2 goals because they won on tiebreaker. It was 30-30.
Yeah, that must be it.
Yeah,
still crazy. So there was still some crazy stuff and cool stuff that happened in 2002. It's not just all completely boring, but definitely a very different dynamic back then.
Honestly, this is one of my favorite games because, like, when you take Beatty aside, there was this upper crust of like 2-goal robots. Like your 469, who else was really good? 308.
I don't remember back then.
The 121 was a good hybrid, but like all the cheesy poofs and like. It was just a Team 60. They were actually the best 2-goal robot that year. And this battle between those 2-goal robots, these races out there. And I mean, this is kind of what inspired autonomous mode because these races, everyone liked them so much.
Yeah.
And the robots, the best teams were going autonomously. It's like they had a drive straight mode for auto so that the drivers couldn't F it up. And the next year, autonomous mode began. Yeah. So like this, it kind of inspired
it's kind of a precursor to it. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So chat's pretty quiet. And I don't know if there was any questions that I spotted in there. But if you have any questions, just tag us with That's First Updates now, and we'll get to them later on about this match. Or maybe you'll have some questions about our more upcoming match, which is a little bit more recent.
The only comments I really saw, there was Stephen MCD 4841 said, as a rookie on 71, we got to see and interact with this up close at BEMCOR Incorporated headquarters, which is the best day ever. So I can't imagine, like, actually be able to see this in person. It'd be very nostalgic for me to do that.
Like Team 71, like those guys were the rock stars in first, the original rock stars, like Brian and Bill Beatty and Gerald Noble, and Tom Michna, and like I remember just being like a high school kid and a college kid, and just going up to them and talking to them, and just wanting to learn and soak up everything about strategy. Like any conversation I ever had with Brian Beatty, I was just like listening, just wanting to learn, because these guys were so good at this stuff. They were like the legends of it. Like all my strategy presentations were based off stuff that I learned from guys like them, Raul from 111, Andy Baker, like those old school guys. So it's
shout outs to a couple of people who were students during that time too. Kevin Kaloje and Amanda Morrison.
Yeah, Kevin, I think, driver for Beatty.
He was the operator on that robot.
Yeah, I mean, he had a lot.
I don't know what that meant. Like, I don't really know what a driver or an operator really did on that robot other than press a button.
He pressed the button to pull the goals in. He's the one that yanked hot, and then it's just like, I don't know. Make sure you don't get bagged at the beginning of the match and someone chucks a ball at your robot. Like, yeah, it was very cool. So, Tyler, do you want to take us into our next match and maybe give us some announcements on some new stuff that Fun's doing?
Yeah, man. We got some cool stuff coming up and some pretty cool announcements coming. So if you didn't hear yesterday, we're kind of just soft launching this. We're going to talk about on shows a little bit and then start to promote it a bit more in Discord and Facebook and stuff like that too. But with that said, we are expanding out our areas for our community to support us. I mean, long story short, we are going independent. We're going community ran. We want this to be a network and a show for you, and you can still do that through Twitch. Those of you who are watching live, we love you, but we know there's a lot of people who don't have an opportunity to watch live and are asking, how can we support Fun? I don't really do the whole Twitch thing. Well, we have an answer for you, and that answer is Patreon. Now, Patreon, guys, is highly recommended. We reached out to a few other podcasters and networkers and asked them, like, hey, what do you do? How do you get your community engaged and involved? And Patreon was the answer every single time. Patreon gives us the highest kickback back to us. So it's going back to the fun things right away. It's not, Twitch a lot of times takes 50% for subscribers and that sort of thing, which we appreciate Twitch and what they've done. But Patreon is giving us a very large cutback. We have stretch goals set to do new things. We want to create new content for you and Fun, and we want the community to get involved in that. We want to start creating new shows, new content, just extra streams as well too out there. And honestly, the end goal is at some point we want to make myself and a couple of people full-time employees to do this at some point, and we need your help and we need your support. So go ahead and go to patreon.com/funfrc. And that will give you that opportunity to do that. As I mentioned, we're going to be slowly rolling that out. Our Patreon subscribers actually will start getting independent giveaways. So if you're offline and you don't ever get a chance to win a giveaway because we do them all live, now you have an opportunity to win a giveaway as well through Patreon. So here's how it's going to work with Fun. We are still going to take giveaways from sponsors. So if somebody wants to, like, if you watched last night on the Catathon, I mean, we had like crap tons of stuff to give away from some awesome corporations and suppliers, that sort of thing. We're going to take those and give them back to you. That's the goal, is if we take something in from a sponsor like that, it goes back to our audience and back to you right away. And general funding for things, if it's a show, it's not going to happen. It's coming from you. So we need you. We need your help. If you have $1 a month, $1 you can pull out of your pocket right now and give 25 cents a week to help make Fun happen, it would mean the world to us. Just go ahead to patreon.com/funfrc, and that's your opportunity to say, you know what, I'm part of something. I'm part of making Fun loud and independent, and they don't have to answer to anybody except for you, because you become our boss. You tell us what you want to have happen in our shows, and we will listen to you. That's what Patreon is about, is allowing those who watch to provide value for getting value. So patreon.com/funfrc will make it happen. We look forward to everybody doing their part and becoming part of Fun Nation. Thank you, guys.
All right, thanks, Tyler. Before we jump into our next match, there was one question in chat. Sure. It's actually a really good one from the Ultra Corgi, and he says, 71 lost 25% of their matches that year. Was that just their bot breaking or what? Since you were saying most of their teams weren't fast enough to stop them from getting the goals. So actually, it goes back to how the qualifying system worked. So teams weren't ranked based on win-loss, and they were, so your primary sort was your opponent's, if you won the match, it was your opponent's score of the match. So Beatty, if they grab all 3 goals, they're going to win matches. It's going to be a shutout. or maybe the other team gets 10 points for having a robot back. But since teams realized they don't want Beatty to seed high, they weren't taking their robots back. So they were trying to zero their scores. So what Beatty would do was they would intentionally not grab all the goals to give their opponents a fighting chance. So their opponents would try to beat them and try and get close to them. And so that's why, and sometimes it wouldn't work and they would end up losing. This Beatty robot was not built for the qualification matches. It was built for the elimination matches. And that was a thing that used to be a huge issue in FRC. That qualification strategy and elimination strategy was completely
different. Yep.
Because 2004 was the first year where they really ranked teams based on win-loss. So every year before that, you were playing for these esoteric things, usually your opponent's score. Like you were trying to maximize your opponent's score. So it led to like collusion and not intentionally not trying to win matches to try and rank higher. It was so stupid. And like, I get what their goal was. Their goal was to try and encourage teams to work together and help each other out. But like, and I say this over and over again, you don't need to encourage teams in FRC to work with each other because they're already forced to because of alliances. Mm-hmm. And so every time FRC has tried a coopetition structure, weirdness has happened. And 2002 was no different. So Beatty completely understood that they weren't building if you wanted to build a great qualification round robot, you built a ball robot, a robot that could pick up balls, score them in goals. Like that was, because then you could pick up balls and put them in your opponent's goals that were stuck in zones, and you could leverage your scores that way. If you built a pure goal robot, you were kind of throwing away qualification matches and relying on the ELMs. Now, Beatty also knew if they grabbed 3 goals, it didn't matter who picked them. So it was just kind of like, who could be the best ball robot in their division to pick Beatty?
Which is what happened, I think. So
yeah, it's absolutely what happened. And like 173, who picked them, was a fabulous ball robot. They were, I mean, like a lot of the modern day intakes that we look at today are based on what they were doing with Polycord back in 2002. You know, I think Jonathan Kentfield from Andy Mark was on that team.
Oh, really?
Yeah, way back playbacks here.
Wow.
So,
wow.
All right, we're going to deal with some more questions afterwards because I think we have some that are a little bit not on topic, but we can definitely get to.
There was one more on topic if you want to take that. So LC910 said, you mentioned how 2002 was one of 3 years that used the opponent's score ranking. What do you think is the best ranking? So it is kind of a general thing, I guess, but what is the best ranking system in your opinion? Is it win-loss tie, RP? What do you like, Harthik?
So I like pure win-loss tie, but I do have to say the last 3 years, the introduction of the bonus ranking points has really helped because, you know, when you were...
Sorry, there's Amanda Morrison just on video just a moment ago there.
When we were doing win-loss tie, it was with only like 12 matches at a district or like 8 matches at a regional, it's hard to get a proper sort. But when there's 4 ranking points available during each match, as long as the ranking points are being assigned to skills that are being rewarded in qualification matches and elimination matches, I'm a really big fan of that system. But the other systems I'm not good with in any sort of way.
In a couple comments that are right. I mean, Beatty did lose a regional, and they did lose a few matches as well too. It wasn't a perfect season. But...
Remember, what I was talking about, the dominance was this match. Like I said, Beatty could be beaten by if you could get to the goals faster than them. And there were teams who could do it occasionally or somewhat even regularly. So if you didn't get to the goals first, then it was over. So this team was beatable, but they weren't beatable when they established their goals in the first 5 seconds of the match. And it's a little bit different and that's what it is with the chokehold strategy. A chokehold strategy doesn't mean that you're just going to win every match for sure. It means that if you execute, you're going to win those matches guaranteed. And so it's a little bit different. Like if you look at the Cheesy Poops this year, because if they execute their perfect match, there's still ways that they could have been beaten. Now, it didn't happen, but, you know, and there's been lots of great teams over the years. You look at 11-14 in 2008. You look at 469 in 2010, like, who could, even when they executed it perfectly, they could still get beaten. While 71, when they executed perfectly, there was no beating them. And so that was the big difference. So like I said, like, you know, the match we watched, 67 and 68 almost had them. If 68 doesn't latch on and 67 doesn't get grabbed by Beatty, it's a completely different show. And they probably lose that match. So,
absolutely. By the way, big shout out to Beatty in 2002 for making a 1 hour, 21 minute and 35 second season recap video to give us plenty of B-roll to use.
Yeah, I mean, that's where I got these videos from.
Yeah.
So.
First Updates Now FRC is produced in partnership with viewers like you. Want to be our boss? Tell us what we're worth and have a say in how our shows are ran? Visit our Patreon to pledge your support at patreon.com/funfrc.